super dense. So, and if I'm talking over here, you will not hear anything at all.
So we don't have any like booth audio anymore. It's gonna be just no surround noise. Is that what they wanted?
That's gonna reduce as much as you can, but this will give you surround audio for a little bit more than that one.
Okay.
So, question for you. I think the files that I had were saved in the Saturday the 20th folder. Okay, right there. Perfect. Yeah, all those guys. Awesome. Hey guys, I'm Kieran Lampert. I'm going to be back again today doing some sculpting for you. If you weren't here yesterday, you didn't really see what I was working on, but I'm just continuing what I started yesterday. I'm going to be working on a skateboard version of Skeletor. It was concepted by the very talented Vanya Todoric. He's given me permission to work on it, so that's what I'm going to be doing today. So if you're here yesterday, thanks for joining me again today, and without further ado, let's just get into ZBrush. Okay? Alright, so from yesterday, I had some of this stuff blocked out, and I was just sort of posing some of these parts that I've got in here. It's still very rough. Still got a lot of stuff that I need to figure out. I'm getting the legs posed to the way that I sort of want them from the concept. If you weren't here yesterday and you didn't see the concept, you can take a look at it here. It's sort of what I'm working from. So I've got the pose sort of blocked out the way that I wanted to. A little bit of finicking I still need to do with it, but for the most part it's looking the way that I want to now. I guess I can start coming in and doing some more finer details, like maybe giving him these pants that he's got on here, adding this belt with these belt loops in here, start doing some of that stuff today. So hopefully I can make some good progress on it in the last hour that I've got here. Alright. I think the last thing I did yesterday was sort of blocking out this skateboard. I put it down here to sort of see what he was going to look like next to him, make sure that the size was looking the way that it was supposed to. Alright. Let's go in and start adding these pants. So I'm going to dynamesh these legs together. Bring these things all down here together. So now I'm going to merge these parts together. Oh, I missed this part. There we go. Alright, now I've got the legs all merged together. And dynamesh them together now and smooth them out. If you were here yesterday, you heard me talking about this smooth brush that I use. It's the Shane Olson fill brush, and it's just amazing. It does a good job of sort of evening out the surface, not getting rid of too many details, especially if you turn the intensity down a little bit to, like, 5 or 6. It really just sort of smooths things out without getting rid of too much of the detail that you've sculpted in there. Just keeps the major forms. So you even this stuff out. Fill in some of that. A little bit of smoothing here. Let's isolate this so I can go in and do all this stuff. Oh, looks like that might have been a separate material. Take care of that in just a second. So a couple tricks here I'll show you fixing a couple of these things. So I've got these extra bits that are sort of hanging out from the top of the legs, and I just want to like crop this thing to be a little bit tighter here. So if I turn on my gizmo tool, set it to the top here, and then holding control, if I scale down from the top, just gonna crop that bit down there like that to a nice clean surface. There we go. Alright, and now it looks like, yeah, see, it looks like that got some color on it. So it looks like it's color and not material, so I'm just gonna fill this using the subtool master with just color. I just want it to be white. There we go. Even this out a little bit more. Use this pinch brush, maybe with the intensity turned down a little bit, just to give these a little bit more form to them. Same thing over here. those kneecaps have a little bit more form to them. Using my clay brush to sort of build up a little bit of form here that I can then smooth away. And it keeps that muscle form on the outside there. And then use my pinch brush to go in and exaggerate some of these muscle forms on the outside. All right, let's give this guy some pants, shall we? Hey. Let's use the lasso tool here. Looks like it's going most of the way down his thigh here. And then on the other side here, even this out a little bit. Here we go. So I got that area isolated now. And I'm going to just crop off this top part here. And now with this selection, tighten up the mask a little bit, and then extract this part out here. It's a little too thick. Let's make this a little bit smaller. Still too thick. Let's make this much smaller. That's better. They're pretty tight. I can always inflate them a little bit if I don't want them. So I'm going to go ahead and accept that. And now, you can see when I extract it here, it's got different poly groups for the outside and the inside surfaces and the thickness between them. So I'm just going to isolate it so I've got the outside selected here. I'm going to delete hidden, so it's just going to have this part here. And now we're going to use our good buddy ZBrush to clean this up a little bit. Keep groups, we'll lower the poly count a little bit. Let's see what this does. So ZBrush is going to take the surface, it's going to analyze it, and it's going to lower the poly count using just quads to something that's much cleaner and much lower poly. Just needs a little second to process the surface. ZBrush has been pretty good. It's been getting better and better with each update. And this version, this latest version, is just awesome. It just does such clean work, as you can see here. So now I've got this nice clean surface. I'm going to inflate it a little bit. Here we go. So now he's got these tight jean pants on. And now what I can do is I can go in, and since it's a much cleaner topology here, you can use the Z modeler. I can set up my properties on the Z modeler, and then I can take this edge and close it off. Do the same things down here. And now that there are those nice poly groups there, I can go up here and crease poly groups. This is going to add a crease to the sections that are different poly groups. And then using this crease level here, I can set the tolerance to different things. So basically, the way that this crease level slider works is I can set it to different levels here. And if I set it down to 0, it's just going to start smoothing it immediately as I subdivide. But if I set it up here, if I set it to 1, for example, the first time I crease, or first time I subdivide, excuse me, it's going to hold that crease, but then every time after that, it's going to smooth it out. So I usually like to set this up to, like, you know, level 2 or 3. So that it just adds a little bit of roundness to the edge here. You can see that.
Yeah, he's a Funko artist. So he works at Funko, and so all the Funko stuff.
And let's see.
Do you use only Funko now? I mean, you only use ZBrush now?
Yeah, we do everything in ZBrush. Yep. We used to do, or at least in other jobs that I've had, we would alternate between something like Maya and ZBrush, like to do hard surface materials or like do unwrapping and stuff like that. Now all those things are in ZBrush, and it's pretty easy to use them. So we just keep everything in ZBrush. It's got a learning curve for sure. but I will say that like the thing that helps is that like back when I started using ZBrush, it was a long time ago. YouTube was not as much of a thing then. Nowadays, like the ZBrush channel and lots of other people that have done demos of using ZBrush, there's so much information out there, and the ZBrush channel in particular has amazing walkthroughs for teaching you every part of it.
We're actually streaming this live right now to our channel.
Yeah, and it's a pretty common thing.
Good.
Yeah.
No, this is what we want, with interaction also too.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're probably the best software for that. We're an more artistic tool, more an artist mindset, more than anything. We have a different version. We have a light version too. It's called ZBrush Core. And then we have, he's using the full.
And also select by this polygroup here. So I think I want to make his pants a little bit taller. So I'm actually gonna select this up here.
It's on sale here at the show. We're getting 20% off of this one.
Smooth this out a little bit. Some of this is going to get hidden by the belts and his jacket, so I'm not too concerned with making this look like super nice and clean. Okay, here we go. Had a little bit of an error here. These are all the same types of polygroups. So to fix this, like right now, the capped ends on his pant legs and the top here are all the same polygroup because they didn't specify a different polygroup for them. But that's pretty easy to fix. So basically, with these isolated, I'm gonna mask off a selection here. I'm gonna hit Control W to polygroup those, and now those are separate polygroups. So now I'm gonna unhide everything, and now let's try that again. Now I've only selected that one, and when I pull up from the surface, it's only going to pull up that section. Alright, let's smooth this out a little bit. Okay. So good. Now I've got these pants in here. I mostly had the legs in underneath it just to sort of like get the form down of what I want his legs to look like. But now I don't want to have to deal with taking these legs and like manipulating them underneath the pants to keep them all tucked in. You can see that like his butt's kind of coming out of here. So I'm just going to get rid of this part. I'm going to mask off the top part there. And with this whole section masked, I'll maybe have it bleed into the pants a little bit more. So let me select a little bit further into the mesh here. There we go. And now I'm just gonna delete this mask section here. Split mask. Yeah, it's a 3D program called ZBrush. Oh. It's a 3D program called ZBrush. It's like a digital sculpting program. So you're just, I'm basically just, I've got like a,
I've got like four. I bought 4 different programs.
Uh-huh.
None of them seem to be like, I can't just drag and drop polygons and shapes and stuff on the screen.
Yeah.
And put it all together.
Yeah.
And there's one I use that's kind of free. It's called CAD.
Mm-hmm.
I use that one
Yeah.
to do my general shapes and you know, because I was like, I designed my 3D hand for Luke Skywalker's robotics.
Mm-hmm.
It was easy to just throw things together.
Yeah.
And I tried using this other one that I got free with my 3D printer.
Yep.
And it was AutoCAD.
Right. Yeah.
And I looked at that and I'm sitting there, I just want a sphere on the screen.
Yeah.
And I couldn't do it.
So the nice thing is here, I mean, it may be called different things in different programs, like the functions that you're using, but in here, I can just append like basic geometry. Can you see this stuff over here?
Yeah.
So if I want like a sphere, I can just drop a sphere in the scene here, and then I can take this sphere and I can scale it, I can manipulate it, I can do whatever. If you want, you can just... Yeah, oh yeah, talk to this guy right here. He works at the company, at Pixelogic, that makes this software, and he can tell you What's up? Yep, it exports STL, it exports OBJs. Yep, absolutely. A lot of people use this software for 3D printing. So, but yeah, definitely talk to this guy. This guy's name is Paul, and he can hook you up with any of the information you want. All right, getting back to this. All right, so now I deleted the skin that's underneath there. I'm gonna do some adjusting to this belt section. I rotated his hips a little bit, so now I gotta rotate this section accordingly. I use the snake hook brush a whole lot to manipulate the parts that I use. I like that I can do really broad movements really quickly. You know, snake brush is really powerful. Snake hook brush, excuse me, it's really powerful, and so I can really get those big movements in really quickly. If I want sort of more subtle movements of different objects, I use the move brush. Save the file real quickly. Yeah, absolutely. I can use this move brush here. Let's get rid of some of these edge loops in here, shall we? I'm going to try the delete loops function. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Sometimes when you manipulate the shape enough, it doesn't let you delete loops like that. I'm glad it worked that time. Okay.
I'll let you watch and I'll see what they do.
Keep groups in here. Good. Paint's turned off, so when I Dynamesh this, maybe Dynamesh a little bit higher. There we go. That's good. I can always clean this up a little bit later. Just want to fill in this stuff up here. Let's Dynamesh a little bit higher now. And I want to polish, of course. There we go. Okay. Good. Now I got some nice clean pants on this guy. I'm going to use my Orbs crack brush and turn on the lazy mouse a little bit higher. So I'm going to draw the seam line that goes down the middle of this crotch here.
Well, I'd say about 85% of the application is done.
And I'm going to go back to my favorite topology brush here to put some pockets on this guy's jeans. So for the people that didn't join me yesterday, this topology brush is one of my favorite things in here. I come from a games background, so I'm used to doing like low poly assets, and
like the stuff that we're using right now does not come with full.
No, I'm looking at the shirt.
Oh, the
I try to do right.
I'm used to doing low poly assets and making them in quads and stuff like that, so that's kind of used to, or how my brain is used to thinking about these things. So it's nice to be able to just sort of draw geometry on here the way that I'd like it to look in low poly, and then go from low poly to high poly. Helps me keep things really clean. So I'm going to split on masked. There we go. Now I've got this pocket on here.
We have what's called something. We'll add more.
Okay, so to avoid it curving here, I'm going to crease these edges using my Z modeler tools. So now when I crease these edges, it's going to hold those corners. Now you can see when I use dynamic, it's holding those corners where I've creased it. Right. There we go. Now it's looking like a pocket.
yeah, you just subscribe to our software. You don't have to buy it.
Kind of a, as a software, it's kind of a protection thing. Just like some of the people that are.
There we go. And I'm going to use my Subtool Master here to mirror this object, and that'll keep the subdivision levels in there. I'm going to append it as a new tool. I want to keep it its own thing.
Software, you know, I want to own this. I don't want to. Renting is like if I have a house.
Oh, okay, that did work. Sorry, it looked like it did merge over. I just wasn't seeing it there. All right, let's try that again.
Yeah, this is actually a mold.
So now I've got this other pocket over here. I step down to my subdivision levels. Move this pocket into place here.
So you use ZBrush to create this for that.
Both. Okay, so here's the four.
There we go.
Yeah, we have a list.
If I don't use the software repeatedly for 6 months,
Shaping up some of these pockets here. For the move brush, I've got this thing on here called AccuCurve. I've got a little hotkey, like a button down here at the bottom for it. But otherwise, it's held up in this brush settings here. Let's see. Brush, curve, AccuCurve, this little button right here. Just to show you the difference here. If I select this object and with AccuCurve turned off, if I'm using the move tool, it sort of pulls out like a soft selection here. With AccuCurve turned on, when I pull out, it's got a much sharper pull, right? And this allows you to like create really sharp edges, really fine-tune points. I use that all the time. I actually learned about that last year during ZBrush Summit, and it has changed my life. It's pretty amazing. Okay, how about we start shaping up this arm over here? Let's Dynamesh these arm parts together. Yeah, let's merge this down. Merge these parts together here. Good, now we got these parts all merged together. Let's give it a couple subdivision levels so it's a little bit smoother. And then I'm going to Dynamesh. Smooth out some of these parts. And now these folds that I started to do yesterday, I can go ahead and come in here, start adding more definition to them.
Let me get my square.
Hey, Kieran.
Yeah.
Would you mind telling us what changed your life at the summit?
What changed my life at the summit?
Yeah.
Oh, gotcha. I just mentioned that this AccuCurve button here like changed my life, just the way that I use it now. So I was demonstrating this move tool and sort of the function of the move brush here, where before, like using the move tool, I would manipulate the surface and it would have this sort of effect, this soft sort of effect. And then this guy that was giving a demo, I don't remember what his name was, showed us this AccuCurve button, which is kept in the brush settings under curve, this AccuCurve right here. And now when you use the move tool like that, it has a much sharper fall off. So sort of AccuCurve without it, AccuCurve with it. You can see the shapes of those curves and the fall off, and that allows you to get these really sharp edges that you just can't get by manipulating it without AccuCurve turned on. So it's that aspect that changed my life. And I'm using this Orbs crack brush to give these sort of big chunky folds here. It's especially good for, like, you know, this is sort of like a Letterman style jacket. And so it's really good for these big, thick materials that this jacket is probably made out of. I also use it just like really subtly to add a little bit more like elbow, like a little bit more elbow definition.
You're gonna get that all like Adobe and out of that.
And Adobe icing top.
Here we go. Add a little bit more colors in here. Here we go. So now I got a little bit more of that creasing going on in there for the jacket. Isolate this so I can sharpen up some of these.
So you got the new square. Give me a receipt because square will automatically. I'm already in this. So they'll send me a receipt.
When you sign, then it'll automatically be like
There we go. Clean up some of those folds in there. There we go. That's got kind of the look that I'm going for.
You can download it. This is your download this, right? So this is go to that URL. You go to that URL.
Clean up this shoulder joint here.
That's it.
Gonna add a crease in here.
This is really cool.
Oh, thanks. It's based off. I can't really claim responsibility for how cool it looks because it's based off this concept that this guy made.
I love those very clean lines in your sculpt.
Thanks. I was just telling people on the stream I really like this Orbs crack brush because it adds these like really big like chunky folds. Yeah, it's really great for stuff like that.
Welcome to the family.
Thank you. We love you.
A little bit of smoothing and then just go back.
Yep, absolutely. Just keep on refining, keep on refining. Add a little bit of weight down here to this. Bring this up here.
There you go.
It's basically this like, this arm is sort of, the material's hanging off of his arm.
I'll see next year. I'll bring something like 3D printed out.
Thanks. Let's join up these arm bits together and sort of do the same thing that we did on the other side here. Merge these things down. I'm gonna append a sphere and put it in there.
Anytime I can get, I love it.
Just want to put this sphere in there to sort of bridge some of the gaps between those arm bits.
Just to give a little elbow.
Exactly. A little bit of structure to that elbow there. And now I can just Dynamesh these bits together.
It's got a 1 terabyte SSD drive. I don't think it's from a Philips.
Here we go.
The thing about it is that it makes it slow. And I didn't want it to be sluggish and all the cookies and all that stuff.
Watch it backing up.
Yeah.
All
So I
right.
just decided I just
Use my clay brush to build up some of this area in between here.
All right, thanks for your small bill.
Hey, it's not small.
We'll see how. I just want to see how easy
Hey, it's really
it
easy.
is versus the 3 software that I run. I have this one that's reading. It was a free.
All right. So with this side, I feel like it's going to be pulling down here from the shoulder, like where it connects in.
And I tried to use it, and that thing,
Go to our website. We have a website called ZBrush.
And then it'll sort of be pulling over here from where the arm is bending slightly.
But even limited, it's still usable and be able to create with it. And it's just like, I need a sphere, boom. I need to make just like
that arm that you're working on, asleep.
Yeah.
Really hollow it out.
Yeah, and there's several ways to do that. If you're going to 3D print it, there's ways that you could basically you open up like where you want to put the hole in there, and then you run a function that will hollow out the middle and keep a hole, and it makes it it gives it a hull thickness, so that you can then 3D print the surface with a hollowed center, so you're saving on the filament. Yeah.
Instead of telling it to like 25%.
Yep, and it's pretty interactive too, so it's like pretty easy to go back and forth. If you do it and you're like, that doesn't look quite right, I want it to be a little bit thicker, you can back and forth and sort of manipulate it.
I want a program that like I said, that fusion program, I couldn't drag anything, just like, I just want a sphere, I just want a square. I couldn't find that in the menu system.
And then same thing over there on the other side. This is looking a little bit too sort of straight up and down here, where it's like the gravity is pulling it down this way. So I'm going to want to give it a little bit more hang on this side to this object.
Hopefully this one will be that easy.
So like I said, go to our website.
So now it's looking a little bit more like what I want. Gonna fold this section in here where it connects back to the jacket. Gonna give the shoulder a little bit more volume on this jacket over here.
So my favorite thing to do is be able to put an object on the screen and have the square bars to be able to manipulate the size and shape. You know.
So like a gizmo, and this is a little gizmo, a little square box.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have that.
Like you grab it and rotate the eye.
Yeah. This sort of gizmo right here. So you can center it, you can move this stuff around, you can manipulate it.
And then you gotta remember, we're sculpting, you can take a brush and
you're able to group things in that too, right? You just want to group all the heads.
Yeah, so it's got the newest gizmo here has like a multi-select. So if you see, like, if I just have it selected like this, I'm just moving this one part around here. If I do the multi-select, I can choose which pieces I want to manipulate together, and then it does that together.
How did you select so fast?
Years of practice. But so this when I've got the gizmo up, this little tool here that I'm pointing to chooses between multi-select and single select. And then with multi-select, holding Control and Shift, I can drag out to unselect everything or select everything. And then I can click on the objects that I want with Control and Shift held down and unclick on things.
Oh, as you click on them,
Yep, they select or deselect.
All right, thank you very much for the quick.
Got the microphone falling over on me. I hope I'm not bothering people.
All right, guys, thanks.
Oh, yes, you will.
Welcome.
Thank you.
You might need to probably tape it up.
And another couple of these subtle ones in here. Again, I'm relying really heavily on this Orbs crack brush because it's just so powerful. Use it for adding some thickness to stuff, like some rounding to edges, and I also use it for putting these big chunky folds in there. Give this a little bit more resolution, smooth it out a little bit.
So I have a question from online.
Yeah.
He says, what is the other brush you are using?
The other brush that I'm using,
Yes.
which I'm using mostly this orb crack brush right here, orb cracks, which I believe comes standard with ZBrush, so it's already built into it. And that one is the one that I'm using to make these like big chunky creases here. I'm also using this SO fill brush a lot, which is a Shane Olson brush. He's another ZBrush artist. He makes a lot of great tools, and I use that fill brush a lot. So, for example, if I make a big slash across the surface here, I can use this Shane Olson fill brush to sort of even that out and smooth out some of the details. So those are the main ones I'm using right now. I hope that answers the question, and that's the one you're asking about. Just adding some of these subtle fabric folds in the back here where sort of shoulder blades are going to be pulling apart the fabric.
This is more of just a comment from online. Is nicely modeled under the pressure of the crowd and flow and question from all angles. Thank you for the tip and explaining how things work.
Oh yeah.
You should make some YouTube tutorial if you have fun time.
Oh man, thank you very much for saying so. Yeah. Oh god, there's I really appreciate that. It's definitely interesting sculpting with like a huge crowd walking by all the time and stuff. But yeah, maybe I haven't done any video tutorials. There's already so many great resources out there, including the ZBrush channel. But yeah, I could look into making some tutorials and see if there's some stuff that I can add to the community. All right, so let's see. We're getting this to look the way I want. I'm gonna add some seams down here on the sides of his pants where the jeans are going down. And I'm adding these before I put the wrinkles on because the wrinkles are going to be, I want the wrinkles to go over the seams, sort of like, you know, how pants are constructed. They're sewn together before you put them on and before the wrinkles form. So I want the wrinkles to be included over the seams. I'm going to hide this here. This guy here and hide this guy here so I can add this seam down the side of the pants. Oh, I've got this guy falling down on me again. Stick that up there. Okay. So now I've blocked in where those seams are going on the side of the pants. They're pretty tight, so they're not going to have a whole lot of big chunky folds to this. But the next thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to inset this area where his pockets are going to be, sort of on the side of the jeans. And I'm doing this kind of like dirty trick for this, but I find that it works pretty well, especially for jeans pockets, which are pretty tight.
Okay, I have another question that, from another streamer, or from another watcher. He's asking, did you start with traditional clay sculpting and then, or straight to digital?
I've done some clay sculpting before, but I'd say it wasn't really, it was definitely not in any professional capacity. And I don't think it was very extensive. So I'd say I mostly went to digital sculpting right away. I was a digital artist for a long time, and I've done modeling and texturing for games, which is much lower poly. So I sort of have like that basis to my work. But no, I did not start with like traditional professional like clay sculpture before I started doing this. I think if you are a clay sculptor, you'll probably find the bridging the gap between these things pretty easy to do because you've already got that really good foundation.
I'm sorry, guys. The mic fell down. There will be a little adjustment.
So I just added in the fly on these pants here, which I again used the topology brush for because I wanted really low poly parts that I can manipulate really cleanly. And then once it's all situated here where I want it to be, I can increase the poly count and make it much smoother and much cleaner. The fly of the pants there. Give it like a little bit of overlap on this seam here. And this is where creasing really comes in handy here. I can use the seam modeler again to sort of select where I want my creases to be. With crease selected, I'm going to do edge, not edge loop. Crease these edges here. I don't want to crease any of the edges over here because I want that to be a rounded section. But now, if I preview what it's going to look like, you can see it's rounding out this area here. It's holding these creases here to keep those sharp edges. With my crease tolerance up here at level 2, I can subdivide twice and it holds the creases. When I subdivide the third time, it's going to start rounding out that edge there. So it gives it like a nice sort of natural looking bevel. And I can go in and add the seams here. There we go. Okay, now I'm going to start adding these little frayed edges on his pants here at the last, I don't know, 10 minutes or so that I've got. Let's see if I can add to this here. So I'm going to do some quick and dirty extracting, but maybe not that thick. That's better. Alright. Extract that section there. Gonna hide this so it's just got this ring here. I'm gonna delete hidden, and then I'm just gonna Dynamesh to make that sort of a filled area here. And now I'm gonna take it and remember that move trick that I was talking about, the move brush with AccuCurve turned on? This is where it really comes in handy. So I'm just gonna isolate little sections here. And then using that move brush, I can pull out some really sharp bits of geo here. And I can give them a nice sort of curve to them as well.
You have room for one quick comment?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So somebody says Vanja says hi.
Who says hi?
Vanja says hi.
Oh, Vanya says hi. Awesome. Oh. That's the name of the concept artist that made this.
Sculpting looks awesome.
Oh man, tell him I say thanks. Still very, very early in this process, so hopefully I can finish this up and make it look really badass once it's all done, but glad you're liking it so far. Just isolate another little bit here. You can see I'm not really like giving too much of a care about this middle section because it's going to be hidden. Okay. Pull out another sharp point here. So I'm just using this to create these sharp points here that are on this model for the little torn off edges of the pants. And I'm going to try and alternate between sort of large shapes and small shapes to make it look a little bit more natural. So this selection is going to be a little bit smaller here. Use this move tool again. Pull out a sharp bit here. Using the smooth brush to eliminate some of that thickness there and really sharpen off some of those edges. So now it's getting that torn edges look to it.
Using special effects on it.
Here we go. So now I'm getting some of those torn edges from the jeans. And again, I'm keeping these parts separate because it's much, much easier to manipulate this stuff when they're separate parts as opposed to working directly on these pants, which if I mess up or I do something that doesn't look quite the way I want it to, or even just regularly manipulating this stuff, it's much harder to do if it's all one object. That was definitely one of the things I did when I was a much more junior sculptor, is trying to do everything in one part, in one singular mesh. It was much, much harder to do that. Using that Shane Olson fill brush, fill in some of this area here. Make sure my back face mask is turned on so that I'm not manipulating the opposite side of the mesh. And every once in a while you can see I'm sort of cleaning up the mesh by just dragging a mask. I've got Dynamesh turned on, so whenever I drag a mask, it's going to re-Dynamesh the surface. Fill in some area here, make this a little bit thicker.
Welcome to the family. Are you a winner?
I think I need to hide some of this stuff that's over here. Get this out of my way so I can see. Go back to this part here. Let's mask off another little bit here. Mask this section off so I can smooth this out, reduce some of the thickness there. So you can see I'm trying to alternate between doing large shapes and small shapes here. Maybe bring some of these parts in so they're not so far away from the pants leg. Alright, maybe last thing I'll do here. Just draw out some of these belt loops here.
That's okay.
Hundreds of videos for free to learn our software. Our YouTube channel and ZBrush Live. There's even more
And
check it all out.
crease these edges. And uncrease these edges. Let's add a little bit of roundness to this. And before I Dynamax this, I'm going to duplicate this and move these guys around.
Hey, you're ready again? Oh, I think Joseph said he was going to do something for you.
I think he did. He said that he fixed it.
He did?
Yeah.
Yeah, Amanda had the same problem. Like, I have no idea. I think he looked up something last night and found a way to do it.
Woo! Just duplicate, move it all around.
Perfect.
Yeah. Cool. Looks like I've got about 5 minutes left here, so I'm going to try and get as much of this stuff blocked in as I can.
Yeah, of course. How are you, man? How are you?
I think this actually needs to move up a little bit into his jacket here. I think his pants belt loops would be a little bit higher here. It's looking a little bit better.
I have a quick comment.
Yeah.
This is from YouTube.
Uh-huh.
Since I start using AccuCurve with Move Brush, my clothes looks 100 times better.
Oh, it's a million times better. Yeah, like I said, it was like, it's silly to say, but it was like a life-changing thing for me, like learning about that. And I had no idea. It had been in there for a long time. But yeah, just being able to use that really sharp pull feature is awesome. Yeah. It's just so nice being able to do those like really sharp manipulations of things. So I've made it into a UI element, but if you've got a brush, you go into the brush settings here, and it's under curve, and then it's in AccuCurve right there. And just sort of, again, demoing what the difference is between these things. With AccuCurve turned off, it looks like this. With AccuCurve turned on, it looks like this. And it just gives you this nice sharp point to it. It's real good. Get another belt loop put in here. Get this on under here. Go. Yeah, I used to use clay buildup a lot more, and there's still certain areas that I use it in, but like I really think of things in terms of shape, like what basic geometric shapes combine together or subtract from each other to make certain things. And so like once I started using more like Boolean functions and Dynamesh and stuff like that, it really came together for me. Yeah, for sure. Mm-hmm. All right. His name is Vanya Todoric, is the name of the concept artist. Ending in that cocked eyebrow shape here. This last little bit here, I'm just going to use some Boolean stuff. Make this a Boolean shape here. So I can Boolean these shapes out from each other. Make this a Dynamesh shape. Make this a Dynamesh shape. Merge down, draw out the mask, and then bam, we've got a Boolean shape here that I can then clean up. Yeah, like clay buildup I'll definitely use for like stuff like this where it's like creating cavities or building up mass. Cool, got about 1 minute left here. So just finish up this little bit that I'm working on. And I'll say goodbye and soon to be leaving you in the very capable hands of Claire Cordero. We'll be sculpting up next. My co-worker at Funko. I think these eyes need to be even smaller based on the concept. Pretty tiny.
They're jumping either way.
Yeah.
Alright, I think that's about all I got time for today, guys. So just wanted to say thanks once again for having me on the stream. Thanks again for tuning in, watching me do my thing for a little bit. Hopefully you enjoyed watching me sculpt, and hopefully you learned a little bit, or at least very interested in ZBrush, and you can follow up on ZBrush Live or any of the videos that they have out there to learn more about the program. So yeah, thanks once again. My name's Kieran Lampert. I appreciate you tuning in.